Tonight, the death penalty. Is it worth keeping? There are more than 700 people on death row in the state of California, and yet we haven't actually executed any criminals since 2006. So, should we use it or should we lose it?
I hope that we can engage in a conversation about one of the most urgent problems of our time, the prison industrial complex, which increasingly has global dimensions and is linked to the development of transnational capitalism.
State, more arrests equal more votes. Pass more laws that hurt more Latin, black, and poor folk. Then cut money for education so they can spend more on incarceration. The company that fed your kids at lunchtime now feed them when they grown, locked on the child line. About $500,000 in jail for drug charges. It was only 50,000 before Reagan took office. Then he sold guns for dope to the Contras, and crack rock exploded in Oakland and Compton. More niggas locked up as expected. This prison's brought to you by General Electric.
Think about the extent to which the vast global apparatus of imprisonment, and particularly corporate involvement in the business of punishment, that these developments are related to what I would call the sedimented history of slavery we are living out today.
And they like to rap about it, that'll work for us. Market them niggas help enslave a new workforce. Dope and guns, guns and dope. Keep them high, no hope, bro. And in and out of code, it's all profit. From the dope to the locksmith, machine so big, Jesus Christ couldn't stop it, it's a parable.
In other words, slavery has not yet been completely abolished.
So, first, Mike, do you think that anybody would ever think that in the United States someone would make 23 cents an hour, that was possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad situation, but you have, nearly 1 out of every 100 adults in prison. And prison labor, the amendments about slavery don't apply to prison labor. You can pay prison labor just about anything you want. In some states, you're supposed to pay at the prevailing wage, but in a lot of other states, you can pay prison labor as much as 23 cents an hour.
A new system of control emerged to replace slavery, called convict leasing.
That effectively re-enslaved enormous numbers of people. And what that was all about, what that was rooted in, was that the Southern economy, and in a way the American economy, was addicted to slavery, was addicted to forced labor. And the South could not resurrect itself. And so there was this incredible economic imperative to bring back coerced labor, and they did on a huge scale.
You say they did it by criminalizing.
Liberation and baby, I want it. Well, yeah, I mean, we see states, too, going broke, and prisons, cost them about $60 billion a year. So this could help defray the cost, too, of keeping people in prison. So in that regard, it could help some of these states that are broke. That is a good thing.
Not if it means that states try to keep more people in prison. Because what winds up happening is companies like having really cheap labor.
Back during the Vietnam War, we used to talk about the military-industrial complex. Well, now you have the prison-industrial complex. And you have what is the ultimate solution to America's economic problem. Those who are poor, those who are powerless, those who have no access to the wealth that one needs to survive, and perhaps wealth isn't, but the resources one needs to survive. In an area where there is corporate downsizing and there are no jobs and there is only a service economy and education is being cut, which is the only rung by which people can climb. The only growth industry in this part of Pennsylvania, in the eastern United States, in the southern United States, in the western United States, is quote-unquote corrections, for want of a better word. The corrections industry is booming.
And if you look at the population of the prison system today, you see that race matters when it comes to determining who gets to go to prison and who doesn't.
The war on drugs, contrary to popular belief, was not declared in response to rising drug crime. Actually, the war on drugs, the current drug war, was declared in 1982 by President Ronald Reagan at a time when drug crime was actually on the decline. A few years later, crack cocaine hit the streets in poor communities of color across America, and the Reagan administration hired staff to publicize crack babies, crack mothers, crack dealers in inner city communities in an effort to build public support and more funding and ensure more funding for the new war that had been declared. But the drug war had relatively little to do with drug crime even from the outset. The drug war was launched in response to racial politics, not drug crime. The drug war was part of the Republican Party's grand strategy, often referred to as the Southern Strategy, an effort to appeal to poor and working class white voters who were threatened by, felt vulnerable, threatened by the gains of the civil rights movement, particularly desegregation, busing, and affirmative action.
The vast majority of people in prison today are people of color. Black people, Latinos, Asians, Native Americans. Native Americans constitute the highest per capita portion of the prison population. That is to say, more Native Americans per capita go to prison than any other group. And women. Women generally get left out when we talk about the prison problem, right? But it's important for us to recognize.
Oh, but now in Jesus I found. I was blind, but now I see.
Linda Carty, some people sing for making a living, but you sing for life.
There are so many things that I don't know and I don't have answers to, but there are some things that I do know, and that I know that if a jury knew, that they would have come to a different decision.
It seems to me that the number one priority on the reparations agenda ought to be to abolish the death penalty.
McFarland is waiting to die for a crime he says he didn't commit.
But yes, I am worried. I do get nervous. Every time my case moved to another level, because I was turned down from the level that we was just on, I get more scared. Because I'm like, if they didn't see the truth here, and now they have to go to this level, when are they going to see the truth?
McFarland's journey to death row began 16 years ago. These are the police photos of the crime scene, taken soon after a shopkeeper was ambushed, robbed and shot in the chest and back.
Make a quarter turn and face the front.
McFarland was arrested. The police didn't have a confession or any forensic evidence linking him to the murder. What they did have was a witness who said she didn't get a good look at the killer, but picked McFarland out of this lineup.
Look straight ahead. Repeat your words. Grab the bag, grab the bag. Grab the bag, grab the bag.
With his life on the line, George McFarland got two attorneys. One had never tried a capital case, and the lead lawyer, John Benn, was 72 years old. Benn spent 4 hours preparing before the trial, and during it, he cross-examined just 3 of the state's 14 witnesses. At key points in a capital case, the defense rested. Literally.
John Benn slept. John Benn slept so hard he was snoring. John Benn slept so hard that he would snore and almost fall out the chair. And this is the God's truth.
Now, did this happen just once, or was it something that happened repeatedly or continuously?
John Benn slept so much that I couldn't even give you an accurate count how many times we tried to wake him up.
2 days after the trial started, the jury found George McFarland guilty. He received a death sentence.
I wanted to just reach across there and just scream, just shake him and scream and tell him, what are you doing? You promised me that the truth would come out. You promised me that I wouldn't go to prison for the rest of my life. You promised me you wasn't gonna let these people kill me for something I didn't do. Then you come in here and you went to sleep and you did nothing.